Welcome to the WEInvested Podcast, where we teach you how to save and make more cash. I'm your host, Wesley Earp, and here I have with me
Jacob Rodriguez.
And this is Season 1, Episode 4, Creating a Budget. But before we get started, I must let you know we do not offer any financial, legal, or tax advice on this show. Let's do it. All right, man, welcome back. So in today's episode, we'll be talking about creating a budget. And before we get started, I just want to give a cash quote like we always do here. And that quote is from Dave Ramsey, and it says, "A budget is telling your money where to go instead of asking where it went."
Yeah, totally.
That's deep.
That is deep. I know. I sometimes feel like I'm wondering where all my money went, but yeah, so it's cool. It's a good perspective for sure.
Man, it happens to everyone. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So before we get into it, just kind of get a good background and a good understanding of what a budget is in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So a budget is, in layman's terms, a budget is an estimation of income and expenses over a period of time.
Yeah.
Which I think is a pretty great definition. But yeah, man, it's just a estimation of what you make and what you spend each pay period.
Yeah, totally. And I think estimation is definitely the key word, that you're never gonna hit it right on the head, but you're just, you're trying to be thoughtful about your income and your expenses and kind of seeing where they're falling, and then hopefully from that you can gain some insight of what you should be cutting back on and stuff like that.
Yes, sir. And then so who can use a budget? Who's able to use them? And it's not just, budgets aren't just for people, they aren't just for individuals.
Yeah.
So governments can use budgets or do use budgets.
Mm-hmm.
Businesses, companies, organizations, small groups of people, basically everybody uses a budget.
Yeah, and that just kind of speaks to how important it is, for any, transaction or business or anyone who's using money. There's some kind of budget involved. So if a business is doing it, it's something that should be beneficial for the individuals too. So it's cool that it's used across a bunch of different, people.
Right, and I think it's pretty much, I'm not sure if you said this, but I think it's pretty much impossible to be successful financially if you do not use a budget.
Yeah, no, that's totally true.
So for business, government, whatever you are, if you want to succeed and thrive, you have to use a budget, understand how to make a budget and create one, and understand how to use one effectively. Yeah,
it's not usually the most fun thing either, but I think, at least for me, when you kind of start doing it and you feel like you're kind of in the flow of seeing where everything goes, it's actually kind of a fun experience that you get to see, like, oh, this month I spent too much doing this, maybe I'll have to cut back. It's kind of fun after a while.
Right, and you kind of get the hang of it. And you get your own process and your own pattern down pat.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
Man, it can definitely be fun, kind of like a game too.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, man. So, who should use them? Everyone, rich or poor.
Yeah. You're definitely. Yeah, there's some people that I've heard that say that they do like top line budgeting, where like they just make sure their top line's good enough and they just kind of figure it out from there. But yeah, the thing is that it's beneficial for everyone to kind of look at your income and expenses. It's definitely not going to hurt you. You're not going to see something and you're going to be worse for it. That's for sure.
Right, man. And I really like to take advantage of a budget from either side of the spectrum. So if I know I have a surplus this month, or a certain month, or if I know it'll be really tight one month, in both directions, a budget is very beneficial, and it kind of adds that peace of mind, which I think is kind of a topic that we hit on every episode, just a peace of mind.
Totally.
Which is what a budget helps bring. So really understanding exactly what you have to work with at the end of each month or at the end of every week is very beneficial.
Yeah, and what would you say to someone who says, like, I have a budget and it's in my head, I kind of keep a running tally of all the money I spend, what would you say to someone who says, I don't need to write it down, or I don't need to track it some other way?
I would tell them that they're crazy. You have to write it down. It's impossible to just freestyle a budget.
Yeah, it's super tough. That's for sure. Because when you're thinking of numbers in your head, some things can get lost, obviously, or some things you even have on automatic payments or whatever. It's hard to keep track of those. For instance, I have car insurance that I pay for 4 months out of the year, but it covers my entire 6 months, whatever, that I'm covered. Right. For me, it's almost a surprise because it's on auto payment, where I see oh crap, I just had $200 leave my account. I wouldn't have known that if I wasn't looking at my tool for budgeting.
Right. And it's you have to track it. You have to track what you're doing and kind of you check in with it every day. You have to pay attention to your money, because if you don't pay attention to money, your money will leave you.
Yeah, and there's so many tools now that make it so easy that you basically don't have to do anything, right? We were talking right before the show, talking about a budget tool that's super popular, Mint, from Intuit, the same people who do TurboTax and all that kind of stuff. They make a easy tool that you barely even have to think about. Do you want to talk about kind of how that works, or how those kind of tools work?
Yeah, man. So would you say, before we get into that, would you say Mint is your favorite?
It's tough to say. It's the best one I've used, just because, well, maybe to explain why it's my favorite, I'll explain a little bit about it. Is that this tool, it automatically links up to all your accounts, so your banks, your credit cards, whatever, and then, or even your investment accounts, and it just shows you on a dashboard how much you're spending by category, and they kind of categorize it for you, and you can fix it if it's wrong. And it's just a really easy tool. But why I like Mint specifically is because it connects with a lot of different banks. So we've talked in the past that we have high yield savings account, and some of those banks aren't the biggest known banks. I use Marcus for mine. Right. And I think I've tried a few other tools that are like Mint, but they couldn't hook up to Marcus to automatically flow through. So Mint's just a ton of people use it. A lot of people use it. And because of that, it has a good amount of scale that it links up with a lot of different, banks, credit cards, that kind of stuff.
Right. And I think that's my favorite part about Mint is totally. Just logging into one dashboard and seeing everything in one place, which is pretty, it's a lifesaver, man. So it saves time, and then you can just scroll through and see all of your transactions, see where your money is going, what you're spending your money on, and know what you need to slow down on, or what you can increase on, or whatever works best for you. But man, I definitely use Mint. It's a great app, saves time, and man, it's a good app.
Yeah, totally. And I think the real cool thing is that, I think, at least for me, once I've gotten older, when I was a kid in high school, I had a checking and a savings account, and that's probably pretty familiar to most people. But when you start getting a job and you get a 401k, and then we haven't even talked about this on the show, but you get an HSA account, and then if you follow what we've talked about and you get a high yield savings account outside of your bank, for me, I think I must have at least my money in 4, maybe 5 different places, institutions. So being able to aggregate that in one place is super helpful for me.
Right, man, because it can get confusing. Trying to keep up with everything and keep everything in mind and remember how much you have in this account or this account. So man, having it in one place is a lifesaver, time saver for sure. Yeah,
totally. And that we kind of just talked a little about Mint, but there's other cool tools out there too that I think will be helpful as we do other episodes and explain other things. I know Personal Capital has a tool that will project your retirement savings and stuff like that. So Mint's cool, but there's other places that do the same thing, and that's not to say that you can't use two tools at the same time. You can use Personal Capital, you can use Mint, because they're kind of automatically working in the background. It's not a lot of work.
Right. And even if you did not want to sign up with Mint, most of your online banking apps allow you to connect
outside
totally. Accounts.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
and usually within, like, I know I bank with Wells Fargo. Like,
right.
they kind of have a mini version of Mint just for their accounts that you can see kind of where you're spending things.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you don't want to go through the trouble, or maybe you don't trust, other outside organizations with your money, like, there's, like, banks have it kind of built into their systems already. And you could even, I know some people literally, like, write down and journal their stuff. The best system is whatever works for you, you know. So,
and that's kind of what I like to do. I like to keep it old school. Even though I do use Mint, I utilize Mint, but I still keep a physical book, so I can.
Oh, that's interesting.
I like to keep it old school. I like to do it both ways, though.
Totally. And I know some people too that they use, like, an app like Mint or something, but they still will type in their expenses into, like, an Excel spreadsheet, because I think if you're using credit cards or whatever primarily, sometimes it's hard to feel, how you're spending money. So it's good for, like, what you do, you actually write down your transactions, so like, you feel the pain of, like, man, I spent too much on this or whatever.
Exactly.
And so there's so many different ways you can do budgeting that you just kind of have to try a bunch of them and then find what most appeals to you.
For sure. And so a few of the good things that come from budgeting. Number one for me would be it avoids any surprises, any unwanted surprises.
Yeah. Yeah, the good surprises. It's
right.
Yeah, it does good. Yeah, no, totally. That there's always expenses that are coming up, and it's good to kind of know what you have. Like, I know I'm going to need new tires this winter.
Right.
Like, that's something that's coming up. So for me to be able to kind of, be like, okay, I need to spend a little bit less, or I need to put aside some money here. Like, that's what budgeting really is you have future expenses, so you're just kind of planning for that.
Right. It kind of helps you see into the future.
Yeah.
And avoid any crazy mishaps.
Yeah, totally.
And next, I would say a benefit for budgeting would be paying bills on time.
Mm-hmm.
So, by budgeting and, kind of having your eye on your transactions and writing down what you're doing or keeping track of what you're doing, it allows you to know exactly what date your bills come out on, and it even give you the chance to set them up on auto pay, like Jacob here was saying.
Yeah.
So, you just have an idea of what bills are coming out on what day and what, so it's easy for anyone to forget that a bill was due on this day.
Yeah, especially when you get older, you have a ton of bills coming in.
A ton of bills coming in and a ton of things going on, in your personal life. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man, it's great to just budgeting is great to help you keep track of what you're paying and when you're paying it and how much you're paying. So
yeah.
And then another benefit I say comes from budgeting is the chance to monitor your spending.
Yeah.
So a chance to track and see exactly what you're doing, see exactly where your money is going, and how you're spending your cash.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the more helpful things is, especially if you're really getting into it and you can see, like on a percentage basis where your money's going to. It's so helpful. And then if you can look at that over time, where you can say like, hey, like I can literally see right here that out of all the things I'm spending a little bit more on food, month after month. Maybe I've gotten into a bad habit of going out or, doing stuff like that. Because when you're living day to day and you're just making small incremental changes to your life based off of whatever, it's easy to lose track of how much you're spending in different places, or if it's changing from a year before. So it's always good to be conscious about that kind of stuff.
For sure. And that kind of brings us to our next point, of being able to recognize and stop unnecessary spending.
Yeah.
So like you were saying, if you realize that I've been overeating, or I've been not overeating, but I've been eating out too much or too often, or maybe going to the movies too many times, or have an unused subscription, magazine subscription or gym subscription, whatever.
Yeah, and I think this is kind of something that the budgets get a little bit of a bad rap for, is that like people think that people who have budgets are always trying to cut pennies across the board. But I think what it's really about is just, and this has been said tons of times before, that's really about like allocating the money that you, the way you want it. So like for you,
Right.
if you think like, I prioritize spending money on clothes, or I prioritize spending money on going out with friends. It's just making sure you have the money to do that, and maybe cutting back from the places that you don't care about as much.
Right, exactly. And kind of, making sure you're spending your money the way you want to and having fun with it and giving yourself a chance to try to enjoy some of your money.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, man. So now that we've talked about budgeting and the importance of budgeting, I thought that we should get into some suggestions to help the people, to help them create their budget or, understand it a little better.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, man. So I guess the first suggestion I would say, and I would give is, to budget with every paycheck that you get.
Mm-hmm.
Don't skip a paycheck. Every time you receive some cash, plan how you want to spend it.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. And I honestly don't do that, but I could see the benefits of really like thinking about, like I have this much money that came in this month. Let's split it up. I like that kind of taking it piece by piece, month by month. That's a good idea.
Yeah, man. I think that's important. I don't always do it, but I try to do it every check I get because every week is different. Every day is different.
Yeah,
so you may have a different need for the week that'll cause you to have to, tweak your budget for that specific day or that specific week, whatever you have going on, for that moment.
Yeah, and I think it's super important to be realistic with it too, right? Because like you can wish all you want that you're only, spending 20% of your income on housing or whatever, but like if you make that your goal, but you're still, having to pay your rent that's above that and other stuff, like it's important. It's something that I kind of do when I'm talking to people about budgeting is, I just tell people, just kind of look at what you're spending right now, just kind of track your spending for like a few weeks, a month or whatever, and then base your budget off of that and see what you want to trim or where you want to spend more money.
Exactly, man. And that's actually point number 2 is to be honest with yourself, be realistic.
Yeah.
And, just have a good idea of how you really spend. If you like to go out to eat. Yeah. A few times a week or on the weekends, just be realistic with your budget. Don't try to budget yourself. It's better to inflate your expected expenses than it is to, put less than what it will be.
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of shame around different things just because of, what our parents have said or what, the media says about, the common thing is like getting like a Starbucks every day or whatever. But if that's like your thing, part of being honest with yourself is if you value that, just being like, I don't care if I spend more than, like 80% of the population at Starbucks, this is what I like, then, go ahead and do that.
Right. You got to be true to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, man. And so then our next point, great segue into that one, is save for fun things that you like.
Yeah.
So, like you said, if it's Starbucks, if it's shopping, if it's movies, concerts, whatever it is, save for fun things.
Yeah, totally. And I think that's kind of... Yeah, and I think it's super important to make room for fun things in your budget. I think, at least for me, sometimes I tend to overshoot and be like, I'm not going to do anything fun for an entire month, and I'm going to save all this money and I'm going to, invest it, and I'm going to be super efficient with my money. But those kind of plans usually don't last, right? Because there's things in your life that are fun that you want to do in the moment. And if you have a budget that's super restrictive, it's not going to feel like an enjoyable thing for you.
Right, man, because we're only human. You know, we have to go out and do some fun things and some spontaneous things sometimes. So
yeah,
it's definitely good to give yourself room for that.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
Yeah, man. And so our next point would be, if you have problems budgeting, try it with a partner or with a friend.
Mm-hmm.
So don't feel like you have to go into it alone or you have to, do this by yourself. Try it out with someone, maybe an accountability partner, if you will.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea, especially because there's so many people out there who could benefit from this, and I'm sure there's some statistics showing, how little people use budgets. So chances are, someone who kind of has been wanting to do a budget and they just need a little help from you or someone else. So that's a good idea.
Yes, sir. And then our last point number 5, it takes practice. Yeah. So if you try budgeting once or twice and you miss your budget or you don't stay within the lines of your budget, it's okay. Try it again. Keep trying until you get it right.
Yeah, totally. I think there's some statistic out there that like successful or people who successfully stop smoking have to try, like an insane number of times to eventually quit, right? So like it's hard to quit your pre-existing habits, but the thing that's gonna most correlate to you being successful at really whatever you're doing, including this and changing good habits, is just trying over and over and over again. And even though sometimes it feels like it's not sticking, little by little, you're moving to the place you want to be.
Right, man. And I know when I first started trying to budget, I think I was maybe a senior in college.
Yeah.
And I tried maybe like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I can't do it. I just gave up.
Yeah.
But then once I graduated and moved out, I'm like, okay, now I have to budget.
Yeah, right.
So, it still, when I started, it still wasn't an immediate, I got it right immediately. But over time, I just got better and better and more comfortable with it, with the thought of it. So, yeah, I mean, it just takes practice.
Yeah, it's just all about progress. And even if even if you're not like changing anything, I think it's super beneficial just to write it down, just track it, and then eventually I think you'll see things you want to change.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you guys so much for tuning in with us today. Jacob, did you want to let the people know how they can find you on social media? Yeah,
I'm on Instagram solely. My tag is Here's Me Jacob, so you can find me there. I'm not very active. I always say that on every episode. I've deleted it from my phone. Update from last week. I hate how unproductive I am when I have Instagram on my phone. So, so you can find me there.
All right, man. And you can follow us on Twitter at WEInvested, and then you can follow us on Instagram at WEInvested. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, share, and comment. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.